the Watchdog on Wall Street podcast, explaining the news coming out of the complex worlds of finance, economics, and politics, and the impact it will have on everyday Americans. Author, investment banker, consumer advocate, analyst, and trader, Chris Markowski.
All right, everyone. All right, got to weigh in on the Jeffrey Epstein deal again. First and foremost, we talked about Epstein, and we put Epstein in perspective of the Watchdog on Wall Street axis of evil. Big business, politicians, mainstream media, a whole nother world that you and I, we don't swim in. We don't live in this world. It is a world of depravity that most people can't even get their arms around. It's stuff that they might see in a movie and think that it's just a movie. It's not real. And I've likened it to the Stanley Kubrick film with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, Eyes Wide Shut. You don't have any idea what's really going on out there and just how bad it is and what these people are like. And I made it perfectly clear that, hey, these are the people that I roll with. Something like that happens to our daughters, you're going to find yourself missing somewhere. I don't care. Because, again, especially a guy like Epstein, because the law is not going to matter for a guy like that. Not going to happen. I don't know what was going to happen next. We made the point that, and when he went into jail, I said this might be a situation where he's going to commit suicide. Or they're going to, talk him into commit suicide. He's going to take care of certain people he wants to. I don't know. But you and I all see this for what this is. This is, we're getting the wool pulled over our eyes. I don't see it's going to be going, I don't see it's going to go that far. They'll find a way to keep the news cycle going as long as possible until people lose their attention for this, and justice will not be done. And listen, I'm honest here. I am. There is no justice in this. I call it our justice system, judicial system. It's a crock. It's a crock. I've dealt with it in what I do in my capacity as the watchdog on Wall Street. Back when we were going after financial crooks. It's back in the 1990s, the whole Jordan Belfort and all the other his peers, all the other ilk that were like that. The people that were going after these guys, they didn't care. They really didn't care about justice. They didn't really care about getting the right people. Elliot Spitzer never cared about getting people behind bars. All he wanted to do was to elevate his position, his rank in the establishment, the watchdog on Wall Street axis of evil. But anyway, you know what? I'm done with it. I am, as I'm just disgusted beyond belief, and I'm sure you might be as well. Something that we've discussed here on the program at length over the years, and I really do find it quite fascinating, is negative interest rates. And the fact that right now there are over $15 trillion, in negative interest rates. Bonds that are yielding negative interest rates. Means if you buy them, in essence, you're losing money, and they're still collecting money. There was a story in the Wall Street Journal about negative interest rates and whether or not this might happen in the United States. A steep slide in U.S. government bond yields basically left some thinking, well, can interest rates in America, can they turn negative? People who lend money out historically get more money back later. Obviously, it's a way to compensate for inflation, compensate for the risk that's being involved, and obviously compensation for not investing elsewhere. And like I said, $15 trillion in government debt around the world that is yielding negative yields. Savers holding these bonds are paying the government to store their money. It's kind of like taking out and paying for a safe deposit box, if you want to think of it like that. Now, again, the thought that our interest rates will do the same, it's out there. It is. And I've talked about this in a different light, and I'm warning my listeners about cashless societies and how if you go to a cashless society, then you can go negative interest rates, and guess what? You can't take your money out, and the government could essentially force you to go out and spend. You have no choice. Again, this is a real weird world that we're living in at this point in time. I understand. We've managed to be the, I'm going to call it the tallest. I know it's not politically correct. The tallest midget in the room for a long period of time, and our bonds are still doing quite well. Eventually, we're going to hit a point in time. I think that a lot of people are going to start recognizing, saying, geez, man, many of these S&P stocks out there, maybe these preferred stocks out there, I'm going to get a hell of a lot better yield on them than on these ridiculous government debt. And for the life, I don't understand it. I don't understand. There is a disconnect. I left for break. I'm on vacation still right now, obviously doing a little bit of work here and there. I mentioned that Greek bonds were yielding less than American bonds. Gee whiz, guess what? Something's wrong with that picture. It is, it's around 7:15, or my time here in Greece. It's about a 7-hour difference. And I'm taking a look at the markets today, and a bit of a tailspin. Some off some 250 points, and some of the headlines out there talking about problems with trade and trade with China. Nah, I don't think so. I'm going to be honest with everybody right now. It's not the trade deal that is making everybody really, really skittish right now. What if? I had the what if right now. You talk about the what if scenario right now. China sending their army into Hong Kong to start quelling some of the riots that are taking place. Hong Kong airport shut down due to the protests and what's taking place over there. Yeah, Tiananmen Square was 1989. 1989. Not the China of today by any stretch of the imagination. Not the type of investment that we have, American companies, European companies from all over the globe have in China today. What would happen? What would happen if China sent the army in and we ran into another Tiananmen Square situation where it turns into a bloodbath? And again, world leaders, business leaders looking at this, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to handle this? They're able to hush up child labor. There was a story last week came out showing how you've got kids as young as 14 years old working 12-hour plus shifts on Amazon's little Alexa gadget. Yeah, that stuff comes out and people get bent out of shape, but it goes away. It goes away. No one really pays that much attention to it. And again, many Americans, they don't give a damn. They don't. I do, but many Americans don't give a damn. They just want their cheap stuff at Walmart. It's going to be different if people start getting, run over by tanks in the street, shot in the street. And obviously, going to weigh on the markets without a doubt. Hey, watch the left-wing loons, watch their underwear getting a bunch over this. Now, to me, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. Illegal immigrants legally. That doesn't make any sense, does it, Chris? Illegal immigrants legally in the United States. No, immigrants that got here and they're legally in the United States, guess what? They're not going to be able to get a green card if they use any social programs. And prospective immigrants may be barred from entry if they can't convince a consular officer that they won't use such programs. This rule that was issued by the Department of Homeland Security is it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal, pretty ambitious, if you ask me. You're going to get all sorts of criticism from immigration groups, without a doubt. You're going to get all sorts of people coming out over this. Journal reports that the rule change tightens the definition of who is likely to become a public charge under immigration law, which is a designation that prevents an immigrant from obtaining legal permanent residence, and which is also used by the Justice and State Departments to determine which non-citizens can be removed from the country or prevented from ever entering. Use or potential use of a benefits program such as Medicaid, some types of housing assistance, or food stamps could now disqualify an applicant, including around 900,000 immigrants currently in the United States. I don't have any problem with this. I don't. We can't have people coming into the country and getting on the dole right away. That's no way to teach a person how America is supposed to work. Again, I'm all for helping. It's an old Dennis Miller line: help the hopeless, not the clueless. And I've equated a lot of our aid programs, handouts, and giveaways and welfare to drugs, narcotics. You get people addicted to them. Going back to Great Society programs. And it was interesting, a column I wrote about it entitled Drug Pusher. This was years ago. I took a Cato Institute report, took a look at all the money that's been spent since the 1960s. And actually, Lyndon Johnson launched his Great War on Poverty program on a porch in Appalachia. Go back to that point in time, take a look at poverty's there. You know what? Fast forward today. Is it any different? No. It's not. It's not. They interviewed teachers in the schools and the kids in that area. All they're waiting for and all they talk about is when they can start getting their government check. We do not want people coming into this country and getting them addicted to handouts and giveaways. We've got more job openings in the United States than people looking for jobs. Let people go out and find their way. They want the green card. Let them go and work. I don't want to hear it. Okay? I graduated from college. I moved to New York City, one of the most expensive cities in the world, with a couple $1,000s in my pocket that I saved finishing up school. Got a job, not a high-paying one on Wall Street. It was basically a semi-apprenticeship position at that point in time. Waited tables and bartended, worked 7 days a week for years. Never took a damn thing. Didn't take money from my parents. Tell me it cannot be done. It can. This is the place in the world where it can be done. So, guess what? I'm all for it. Should probably touch on op-ed today by Andy Prusder and Jim Talent. We're going to touch on it is because these guys are echoing many of the things that I believe in and talked about for a while when it comes to China and their numbers. Right now, you got the report that came out on July 15th. We covered it here on the program. China's gross domestic product grew at the slowest rate since 1992, 6.2%. But it's a little bit murkier than that. China has been cooking the books for a long time to make their performance look a hell of a lot better. And guess what? They're doing the same thing now. Same thing. They write that no one outside the Chinese government knows exactly what is happening in China. But the latest report concedes that economic conditions are still severe both at home and abroad, and that the unbalanced and inadequate development at home is still acute. If that's the official line, the real story is certainly far worse. 6% growth would fall short of the Chinese Communist Party's ambitions. While China has grown richer, it is still a relatively poor country. Per capita GDP is $10,000. That is below Romania's. Even at 6%, it would take decades for China to catch up with Taiwan at 26,000, South Korea at 32,000, Japan at 41,000, Hong Kong at 49,000, and forget about the United States at 62,000. For 2 decades after the death of Mao Zedong, the party injected a degree of freedom into the economy. But there is a limit to how much control the socialist regime is willing to sacrifice. It refused to create a private banking system or an independent legal system. It won't privatize the vast state-owned enterprises that account for about 30% of China's economy. That obviously serve the regime and their goals and enrich the people at the top. Again, for how many years have I been explaining this and talking about this here on the program? And everybody's getting scared of China. And China is this great dragon. And look at what China is going to do. No. China is until they free up their economy and they let things float the way that they're supposed to float, and they let companies die that are supposed to die, no. And I've equated it here on the program with problems that we have in the United States with too big to fail banks and auto companies that we bailed out. We're not nearly at their level. For the past 20 years, the party has generated growth through debt-financed investment and increasingly aggressive exploitation of the global trading system. Trump wasn't far off when he called it the greatest theft in the history of the world. The Chinese Communist Party's policies created tremendous economic imbalances, saddled China with debt, and bred suspicion and disillusionment among trading partners. Even before 2016, many observers believed China was headed toward stagnation. It's against this context that the Trump trade policy has put such pressure on Beijing. The first wave of U.S. trade sanctions announced in March of 2018 included strategic tariffs on Chinese products, restrictions on investment in several key industries, and a WTO case challenging Beijing's institutionalized theft of technology and intellectual property. When Beijing refused to meet our demands, White House increased the counter tariffs, dealing another blow. While trade talks will continue, Trump has now announced the U.S. will impose a 10% tariff on an additional $300 billion in Chinese goods. Big tech companies are taking their manufacturing out of China. Retailers are pulling out. The Chinese National Bureau of Statistics reports that in July, Chinese factory activity declined for the 3rd month in a row. That's fewer jobs. Chinese Investment Bank, the China International Capital Corporation, said China's industrial sectors lost 5 million jobs in the past year. 2 million because of the trade war with the United States. And whether you want to believe it or not, this matters to them. They're feeling this. Now, listen, I don't know what China's going to do. I don't know if China's just going to say, hey, you know what, we're just going to suck it up until we get, maybe get somebody in the White House. Maybe get somebody in the White House that's going to, not give a damn about this, like prior presidents going back decades. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Maybe Donald Trump wins in 2020. They'll say, all right, we can't hack another 4 years. I don't know. But what I'm telling you is we're winning this trade war. It's a little more story here before we got to go. All over the news, the European stations, places I stay, they have the French TV and the German TV and the BBC and, of course, god-awful CNN. And they all care about this UN climate report on land usage. And again, it's another story where we're all going to die. We're all going to die. World keeps getting wealthier and wealthier, and more people keep coming out of poverty. Yet, year after year, these elitists keep trying to tell us that we're all going to die. And things aren't going to work their way out. And it's going to be a big disaster. I laugh. I see these stories, and for the life of me, these people have been wrong forever. Never been right. Never been right. And the useless idiots out there buy into this crap. I saw that there was a university in the United States that's now banning hamburgers to save the planet. Yeah, that'll do it. You know, years ago, I came up with a way to basically solve the problem. And it's pretty obvious, yet none of these elitists ever come up with it. Al Gore, back at his Live Earth concert way back when, was asking people for money. If you went to the website, which I did, they asked you how big your house was, what kind of cars you drove, and they would congratulate you and tell them and say, hey, send Al Gore X amount of dollars every single month, or send him a bulk check for $3,000 to cure your carbon sin. And I was amazed by it. I really was. I don't know how many people actually did it. But anyway, the thing goes on and on and on, and it constantly trying to sell us something or tell us something. Back then, at that point in time, I said, you know what, I got an idea. If they're really so concerned, and it was really that big of a deal, why don't we just get rid of useless, in essence, useless as far as productivity is concerned? Well, it wouldn't be useless. It would obviously affect certain areas, but why don't we just get rid of all yachts, all recreational vehicles, including boats, because they burn up all that fuel. How much fuel? Anybody ever calculate how much fuel that would save? No, they're not going to do that because the elitists need their boats. And I like boats too. I'm just trying to tell you, there's nothing there. Just one big fat power grab. Always has been. Anyway, got to go, everybody. WatchDogOnWallStreet.com. WatchDogOnWallStreet.com. Our newsletter, consultations with our certified financial planners, all sorts of great stuff. WatchDogOnWallStreet.com. Our 24-hour day help hotline, 800-471-5984.